I'm unmuted. Can you hear me? What's that? You can hear me.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
And I can hear you. Okay, fine. Yep.
Okay, I think we'll get started. It's 7 o'clock, so we shall get started. How are we going there, gentlemen? Thank you. Firstly, my name is Karen Redmond. I'm the Mayor of the town of Gawler, and I'd like to welcome everyone to this ordinary council meeting on the 24th of May 2022. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge that we meet on the traditional lands for the Kaurna people tonight, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Greater Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. So, roll call. We have Councillor Paul Koch on Zoom. Welcome, Councillor Koch. And we have everyone else here. Welcome, elected members. There are no apologies. Are there any motions to grant leave of absence? Councillor Goldstone?
Yes, for Councillor Little for the period 8th of the 6th to the 4th of the 7th.
4th and 7th. Thank you. Any other motions to grant leave of absence? Do I have a seconder? Are you happy to second Councillor Davies? All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Any other motions to grant leave of absence? There be none. There is no leave of absence, no non-attendance. Public open forum. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, and the people that have asked to speak in the public open forum are Peter Bailey, Ian Tooley, Karen Braum, Rita Britton, Joel Figueroa. Did I say that correctly? Thank you. And there'll be 5 minutes each. Give you a 30-second warning before the 5 minutes is up. So firstly, Mr. Peter Bailey, if you'd like to come forward. Thank you. Just turn it on, Peter. There you go.
How's that?
Much
Good.
better. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm Peter Bailey, and I'm here to represent the Gawler Car Club, and I'm going to make some comments on item 8.7 of your agenda. I'll start off with thanking the Gawler Council and the Gawler Show Society for listening to the car club and what they're trying to achieve. I've been involved in trying to do what we're doing currently for about the last 10 years, so I'm feeling like a bit of a loser. But hopefully at the end of all this, we'll have something happening that's going to be good for the community. I'll start off with congratulating Bryce Norton for his comprehensive report, and I'll make reference to the background of his report. And Little Paxton Street was an absolutely ideal location for the car club. It's just unfortunate that it was a dump, and it was found when we we spent quite a bit of money on finding out that it was still a dump, and really not useful. If we were to go ahead, it would cost many thousands of dollars, and it would be all underground. And we passed on to looking at other areas, and some suggestions was the old Petanque grounds and the old tennis courts were identified as the possible grounds. And we were looking for just open ground. We weren't looking for a building. We're prepared to build on the ground. And anyway, we discussed that with the council, and they came up with a further suggestion, and that was at the showgrounds. So we looked at the showgrounds and we thought, gee, the poultry shed looks like a good likely location because it looked run down, and we heard that the bird club had vacated that. So with further discussions with the Show Society, the poultry shed wasn't available, but they came up with a possibility of using their store shed. So that meant that they needed another shed to replace the store shed. Well, then we got involved with further discussions with the council, and there was a start of replacing the building in one location, and the car club were quite happy to get costing on that, and it was $67,000 for a 24 by 12 by 3 metre building. But then more user groups became involved, and the price blew out to $200,000, so that was abandoned. Further consultation and many more proposals were put up, and now we're here today with a shed proposal that you're voting on tonight. An offer was made to the council and presented at the council meeting of the 26th of October 2021, where the car club offered $10,000 towards the cost of a new storage shed to be built, plus an interest-free loan to the Gawler Council for the shortfall of the required full amount. Conditions of repayment of loan to be determined. That was for the initial building, and conditions applied to that offer, and those conditions, the current Show Society storage shed ownership and a 7x6 ground lease be granted to the car club, along with a ground lease of the footprint of the poultry shed. To facilitate the future car club use with master plan evolves. Use of the poultry shed remains with the Show Society until no further use is required by them or the demolition of the building for the construction of the master plan building for the car club facility. That hasn't really changed as far as the car club's concerned, but further in Bryce's report, he stated that it has been envisaged that the club would immediately utilise its existing Show Society storage shed for a car workshop and storage facility.
So Peter, you've got 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. Allow the club facility to meet and work collectively. Unfortunately, what's come out of that with meeting with the council and planning and building and also a structural engineer, that building is not meeting code, so it will have to go. Therefore, the car club's expense will be quite great in regard to that. And it is evident that without additional project funding, whether that be from council or any other source, the proposal for the Gawler Veteran Vintage and Classic Beer Club to utilise the existing Gawler Show Society storage structure as an immediate club home and workshop is not able to progress unless you vote for this. Thank you. Any questions?
We will take questions at the end, but thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Next up is Mr. Ian Tooley. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I, like very many in our community, am concerned about how this council spends our ratepayer money. Number of areas, two-page spreads in the bunyip. In the 21-22 election year budget, we saw, I think it was 3 additional staff added, including, I believe, 1 to form a digital marketing officer. I believe this new digital marketing officer costs around $100,000 a year. I may be wrong, and is responsible for overseeing the production of the 2-page advertorials that were labelled news, but are now labelled partnership. These 2-page advertorials are written and produced by council staff and often devote around 20 to 25% of their content to promotional pictures and quotes from the Mayor and the CEO. They were wrongly labelled as news, as this bunch are, for months until I complained to the Journalists and Publishing Board, and then the Bunyip decided that it would label them as partnership. Like all such features, they should be correctly labelled as advertising features, infomercials or advertorials. I was quoted around $1,500 per page. What does the annual partnership cost? The minutes of the 23rd of June 2020 council meeting would indicate that this partnership perhaps costs around $100,000 annually. Just a coincidence that these two-page promotional advertorials started appearing late in 2021 and appear about every 3 to 4 weeks now in this election year. Boundary reform. I've looked at the agenda, 380,000 plus GST plus 15% contingency equals a potential cost for a failed bid to the ratepayers of $481,000. And this is on top of the tens of thousands of dollars already spent, plus the time spent preparing submissions and equaling tens and tens of thousands of staff time. Feedback and strong opposition from Gawler, Belt, Hewitt, Light Regional Council and Barossa Council would indicate that the Boundaries Commission will give Gawler Council a resounding no to its application. And that equals over $500,000 of our ratepayer money flushed down the toilet. With Villawood, St Ives, Roseworthy Gardens all in filling the space between Hewitt and Roseworthy, does Gawler plan to bid for them next? Cowan Street land purchase, Churchill tennis courts. I can only assume that the secret agenda item tonight, titled Proposal to Purchase Land, Cowan Street, Gawler, relates to the Churchill tennis courts, the only land up for sale in Cowan Street that I'm aware of. Why would council consider purchasing this land when it has been desperately trying to sell and divest land in order to bring down debt? Why would council buy these old tennis courts when within walking distance of them, we have the Gawler Tennis Club and the courts at Clonlee, and when Churchill residents have access to so much open space in and around it? It will cost ratepayers, I estimate, over $1 million when you consider the asking price of $850,000, hundreds of thousands of dollars to bring the courts up to the standard required for public land to be safe, and the requirement for annual care and maintenance in the tune of many tens of thousands annually for decades to come. Why would council consider such a purchase when a private developer is keen to purchase and when the CAP has just approved the development application over the land? Fourth area, community garden. Council has committed around 30,000, I believe, to the community garden group, and that group want about $250,000 to set up a community garden on the outskirts of Gawler, over 5 kilometres from the CBD, in a semi-rural area with few houses and where most properties have large blocks and big gardens and with no public transport. Establishing a community garden in that location doesn't tick any of the boxes or requirements for establishing a community garden. Community gardens are located close to dense residential areas, including near flats, apartments, and retirement villages, aim to provide a garden for those with no or with a very small garden, are centrally located and most accessible by walking or by public transport, are run by community groups who donate infrastructure, build via working bees and run workshops, provide a place of community and shared interest that is easy to access, grow and establish organically over time, and are often located on council parklands and even on areas of floodplains, as is the one in Henley South. I pushed for the community garden and I got the ball rolling. Charles Sturt Council is a model of best practice and has numerous—
You've got 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mayor. And has numerous council community gardens. My favourite being the one in Henley Beach South, which is built on the Torrens River Floodway Park. Investing a potential $250,000 in a community garden in such a remote area will ultimately see the venue fail and another $250,000 of ratepayer money flushed down the toilet. The top southwest corner of Goose Island is the only sensible location for an effective community garden that ticks the boxes. We desperately need a council that listens, that stops wasting our money, and that frees itself from the influence of former councillor Adrian Shackley and the old guard faction, which you can see are behind at least 3 of these points of council spending. Thank you.
Thank you. Next cab off the rank is Karen Braum. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Redmond. Because there's no presentation with the hub report tonight, we'll leave it until another time to speak, okay?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry, we thought there was a presentation with the hub report.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, next we have Rita Britton. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. I'm very unprepared. I didn't know I would be speaking tonight, although I knew this forum would give us a space to speak about this issue. I'll explain. I've lived in Gawler for 45 years, and it's the first time I've ever stood up to talk about anything like this with council. I'm amazed you don't know about it, how uninformed you are when. So what I'm speaking about, this is the planning report, which you'll find incredibly hard to get hold of, and it's in regards to 6 Porter Street in Gawler. Now, Cowan Street and all those areas, as you would know, is our heritage area, and it's prime heritage area. My son lives there, and the school is there. The church that I had attended was there, and we were just visiting my son, and a gentleman came by and said, "Did you know there is going to be a mental health hospital or health centre here?" It's in the old convent, number 6 Porter Street. It was a residential property for a long time. It's been approved, and we only have until the 1st of June to actually speak to it. So had this man not walked past the gate, not seen the sign, which is half the size of this, you can't read the sign to say that this is being built. There's nothing in the papers. Go online, try and find it. There is no consultation, but it's been approved and it's going to go ahead. You're welcome to take a copy of this. My daughter-in-law couldn't find it after she found it the first time. She spent a day looking through it. It's called a mental health facility. Some of the things that she says here, it just insufficient infrastructure to deal with persons with mental health issues. And I have compassion towards that, but not next to a primary school. For those of you that aren't aware, the primary school is right next door. The church is next door. Cowan Street is a primary heritage area. The police station is ill-manned, not manned sufficiently, and the security and safety risk of people to their properties. A gentleman just told me if something happens and it goes in that area and he finds a syringe in the street, he's going to know where to bring it. So people are feeling very threatened, highly threatened by it because there's no consultation. It's going to be the business hours. So they're saying it's normal business hours. I'll just find what Rebecca highlighted. I believe it's 8 o'clock until 9 o'clock at night. There's going to be 24-hour security, which means there's going to be quite a high risk. And I was just informed to the impact that the Hutch Hospital has had on their neighbours, let alone primary school children. So mental health people, my mum has been a mental health hospital, and I know what the people are like. They're very desperate people that go in there. It's in this, there's quite conclusive. This is a conclusive report. And at the end it says, the development will not have any off-site adverse impacts and can comfortably accommodate a scale of development proposed in a location that is suitable for the attended use. There's no parking in that area, but they're going to put a car park in. And what Rebecca has put, what about the school traffic? What about funerals? What about the weddings, let alone our heritage area of Gawler? I rang Brian up because I know him personally to talk to him about it and was absolutely amazed that you don't know about it. I think that is incredible. I don't know how the structure works, but somehow something's been very missed out, and I think that's disgusting. And from my point of view, I think, you know, perhaps the next place to go is to get some signatures and perhaps to go to current affair, something that you don't really want to do to bring attention to Gawler. But the reason that I'm bringing it here tonight, and the gentleman, I didn't even contact the gentleman. This has happened so quickly. So I came with my son. You're welcome to read. I'll leave a copy of this and it can be copied off for you. And I'd love you to tell me we're wrong, that it's not going to happen. Okay? Yeah. So I'll leave that with you, and thank you. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Rita. Okay. Finally, we have Joel Figueroa Figueroa. 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 Is
That's
that right?
close enough, ma'am.
Thank you. How do you say?
Figueroa.
Figueroa.
Yeah, it's just
Thank you.
exactly how it's spelled. But that's
Thank
all.
you.
So, ma'am, councillors, how you going tonight? Hope you're all well. So obviously I came with my mum, and I have been living in Gawler for 40 years. All right. I love Gawler. It's the home of myself. It's the home of my wife. It's the home of my children. They've all grown up here. So I live in Cowan Street, which I do believe is the jewel of Gawler, that whole Churchill area. I'm not sure if you've ever driven down there. I'm 100% sure you have. But you got the churches. I live right in between those two churches. So I am very protective of my area. All right. So when my mum told me about this, just a gentleman walking past that told her about it. And I, as herself, cannot believe that you guys don't know about this. It's not that you've missed it, it's that it hasn't been brought to your attention. So my hope for tonight is that you will be furiously writing down 6 Porter Street, Gawler, all right, and that you will look into it yourselves. All right, there's nothing I can do except to let you know. All right, this is a mental health place that I've heard is going to be having methadone people come and get their methadone there. I mean, next to a school, in a neighbourhood, in a prime heritage area of Gawler. As far as I'm concerned, the jewel of Gawler. Look, my hope is that this will not go ahead. Like I said, if you love Gawler as much as I do, if you love your heritage areas, you just simply can't let this go ahead. So please look into it, find the facts out for yourself. This was very hard to find, which I find is just ridiculous as well. That there's an A4 piece of paper that is unreadable on the fence there. It's just simply unacceptable. Not on your part, because as far as I can tell, you didn't even know about it. So where's this coming from? Is it federal? I don't know. Please, for Gawler's sake, look into this. All right. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Joel. Any questions for anybody? Councillor Davies?
I guess this one's to staff, just around this mental health place. My understanding is that it's not like an asylum or anything. It's just, I think Dr. Naomi runs new place for talking to people with anxiety and depression and that kind of thing, that more of that kind of mental health place rather than a hospital. I don't know if anyone's able to.
I think the question is has the application been approved?
Well, and what it's exactly an application for, because mental health can mean come in and have a chat if you have depression, or it can mean come in if you've got a drug addiction and, you know, get a dose of some. Those are 2 completely different types of places. I just want to sort of clear that up.
Thank you. Jack? Mr. Darzanos?
Through the chair, an application has been received. It is out for public notification, and the A4 sheets that have been advised by the people speaking this evening basically outline the application. I think there's a little scanning code on there which you can scan and find out more information, but a decision has not been made at this stage, and a council assessment panel meeting has not been set for this matter to be heard just yet. So we are seeking feedback from the immediate community.
So people can put in can put in written representations, but also ask to be heard, and that is open now. And how do they go about that? Oh, sorry, Jack.
It's through the Planning SA portal, and there's an ability on there to directly link into the application and actually lodge your submission through that portal. Or they can contact council directly and ask to speak one of the duty planners on board. And
that might be the way to go. Have you put in applications? Have you put in representations? Yeah. Yeah. The planning laws were changed by the previous state government, which stopped public consultation. They changed it to put up a sign, which is what you saw on the property, and that's the public consultation. That's been changed by the state government. We've been fighting that, been doing lots of advocacy around people being able to feed into and also have third-party appeal rights, because they've been stripped as well. So there has been a lot of work done by this council to not really much avail. We've got a new government and there's more advocacy work to be done around the new planning laws. It sits with state government. However, there is a live application, and I would urge you to put in your representations through, just as Jack said, or ring council and ask to speak to the duty planner, and they will walk you through how you put in a representation. When does it close, Jack? Well, you're not sure yet? You're not sure? I beg your pardon? 1st of June. Okay, so I would ring up tomorrow, council, ask to speak to the duty planner, ask them to give you advice on how to put in your written representation, and you have a choice whether you want to speak at an upcoming council assessment plan panel. That is a separate authority to this council. It's independent of this group. State government has made planning completely separate to this group. So I would, if you're wanting to do that, I would urge you to get onto council tomorrow morning. Okay, thank you. Any other questions at this stage? Councillor Shanks.
Thank you, Mayor. And thanks to all the speakers tonight. I just had one for Peter Bailey, if you could indulge us for a second. I just wanted to confirm the staff recommendation that we'll be voting on tonight. Is this the direction that the car club are in favour of? I was just trying to get that cleared up.
Car club's got, or has been offered, there is other initiatives that could probably be put in place, but they may well take years. And we're already 10 years down the track as far as I'm concerned. I want to see it happen in my lifetime. Others have said it won't happen in their lifetime, and it hasn't happened for 2 people that I'm aware of. So please look favourably on the car club. They're a community club, and that's pretty obvious in how much they've put back into the community, in excess of $300,000 through their swap meet, back through the service clubs. Look at that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks, Peter. There've been none. We'll keep moving. We now have a deputation for Mr. Ian Tooley on the rural zone, if you'd like to come forward. So, Ian, you have 5 minutes. I'll give you a 30-second warning. Okay.
Mayor, just before I start, could I just make a correction? I mentioned that former councillor Shackley had influence over a number of the matters I read about. I'd like to correct that. I do believe he has undue influence over the council, but the only one in what I read before would obviously be related to the Churchill tennis courts, not the other matters. I just want to put that on the record that I misspoke on that. Thank you. So can I begin now, Mayor?
You should, certainly.
Thank you. The people of the rural zone have been calling out to their council for decades, and the shelves are stacked with hundreds of submissions, petitions, and with hundreds of signatures and consultant reports after consultant report, and their council turns a deaf ear. The rural zone has stagnated between a twilight zone ever since Gawler took hold of the area in the 90s, and held hostage, it seems, by a small group of councillors who dream of a buffer zone, dream of a green belt to hold back the hordes from the south. This group of ideologues seem to hold the view that Gawler is a tiny rural town that must be quarantined from development at all cost. They appear to be locked into a 19th century view of Gawler. Investigation report after investigation report and consultation after consultation keeps saying the same things. Land holdings are too small. Water is not available. Agriculture, horticulture is not viable, intensive or otherwise. Vast majority of landowners want ability to subdivide to a minimum of 2,000 square metres, about half an acre. It took decades and a huge effort by elected members over the last 2 council terms to finally get a resolution for action on the books in August of 2019. Council could have been working on things that the minister requires to progress a rural areas DPA and statement of intent since that time, but chose instead to put all on hold until the new planning code was introduced. The new planning code was implemented across South Australia on the 29th of March, 2021. Despite having a resolution on the books to proceed to a DPA and statement of intent for rezoning the rural zone, August 2019, this council proceeds to commission yet another consultant report, the Rural Areas Land Capability Assessment by Aris Proprietary Limited. At what cost to ratepayers, I don't know, but I would guess they're around about 25 to 30,000. 25 to 30,000 report from Aris told us what we already know. 90% of blocks are under 5 hectares and too small for commercial agriculture or horticulture. Water is not available for intensive agriculture or horticulture. The rural land is capable but not suitable for agriculture or horticultural purposes, intensive or otherwise, the report said. If water could be sourced, it would require millions in infrastructure costs and little to no chance that private council or government would invest the required millions to bring water into the area. The Hillier, Evanston South, Cudler Rural Zone is flat land, sandwiched between Playford and Gawler in the main, close to the Northern Expressway, has a new electrified rail line running through the centre of it, comprises 90% of blocks being less than 5 hectares, already has a zone that allows subdivision down to 1,200 square metres, has developments like Orleana Waters and Aspire abutting it, developments that allow block sizes down to 300 square metres, lacks water for agriculture, horticulture production. Everything tells you that the rural zone is ripe for the picking for residential development. The question is, what type of residential development does Gawler want? Look at all the developments happening all around Gawler, arguably on some of the most prime agricultural land with both capacity and suitability. The developments all along the Northern Expressway, south of Gawler, all happening because of the expressway. The developments between Gawler and Roseworthy, including St. Ives, Villawood, and Roseworthy Gardens, and the planning in place for a huge Concordia development. If Gawler does nothing in the pipe dream that someone will invest millions to bring water into the region in the hope that someone will grow a niche crop that Councillor Koch and some other elected members has been grown in Israel and Northern Territory and grow native bush tomatoes or the like, to quote the castle, tell them they are dreaming. Do nothing, take no leadership as a councillor, and the rural zone will fester like Gawler's historic walls until the South Australian government steps in, like they did in Springwood, and decrees that the rural zone is prime land for residential development and rezones it to allow dense residential with block sizes down to 270 square metres. That can happen. That is what the government does. It loves development along things like electrified railway lines. The only way to future-proof and protect the zone from a potential SA government intervention is for Gawler Council to be smart, for Gawler Council to act on the evidence it has on file, for Gawler Council to honour the wishes of people as documented in the extensive community consultations, for Gawler Council to heed the advice of all the consultants and their reports, and for Gawler Council to proactively lobby the South Australian government to rezone the rural zone to allow subdivision to a minimum of 2,000 square metre residential estates, like we have on the eastern entry to Gawler in Hamilton Estate, Coastal Estate, where councillors Koch, Samble, Paul Horwood and others live and have lived. The only reason this hasn't happened—
30 seconds, Ian, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The only reason this hasn't happened, despite all the evidence, despite all the reports and the costly investigations, and despite the decades of lobbying by those in the rural zone, is because a certain group of councillors have put their personal and ideological preferences ahead of the facts and the evidence, and they have stubbornly blocked it in a fanciful dream that someone, private or government, will buy the land and create a green buffer zone. Some of those councillors are here tonight. Act on the rural zone, DPA and statement of intent, listen to your people and do something before you lose all the opportunity. Do nothing, it festers. Do nothing, the government will take over and you will lose it, and you will have exactly what you don't like, Councillor Hughes. What you'll have is dense urban infill and you'll have no control over it. Let it go to a half-acre estate and you'll have the beautiful inflow like you get in the eastern side when you come in through that area where some of your mates, smiling Councillor Hughes, live.
Thank you, Mr. Tooley. Thank you very much. Okay. That completes the deputations. We're going to keep moving. Elected members, are there any declarations of interest?
Yes, yes.
Oh, Councillor Koch.
Yep. I'll have a perceived conflict of interest in two items in 10.4.
10.4.
That's the CCS agenda.
Oh, that's the CCS agenda. Which one
Yep.
exactly?
Pardon?
The late item. We may
Yeah, the
not
late item. Is it 10.4?
get to it tonight, councillor Koch. There is a late item, recommendations from the Corporate and Community Services Committee.
Okay, if we get to it, then I'll have to declare perceived conflict on two items in that report.
Sorry, councillor Koch, which one is it?
It's to do with the activation,
The activation budget? Yep.
the activation budget and the Gawler Business Development Group funding. So I've got, I'd declare perceived interest in those two items.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other declarations tonight? There be none. Keep moving. Now, we'll move on to confirmation of minutes. You happy to move that way, councillor Davies? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hughes, any discussion? No, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. That's the ordinary council meeting on the 26th of April, special council meeting. You happy to move that way, councillor Little? Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Deputy Mayor Hughes. Any discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. It is carried unanimously. Thank you. That concludes the minutes. Are there any business arising from the minutes? No. Moving on to 8.1, Gawler Business Development Group Annual Business Plan. Are you wanting to give a presentation, Karen? Okay. If you'd like to come to in case there's any questions. We have a recommendation here. How do you wish to proceed, councillors? Deputy Mayor, are you happy to move the motion? Do you wish to speak to it?
Just briefly, I think it's pretty straightforward. I think the reporting is getting better, and I also think it's good that the carryover, they're looking at how that's going to be handled. So yeah, no, I'm happy to move the motion.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ballalonga. Do you wish to speak at all, Jim? Discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion, councillor Shanks?
Yeah, I always enjoy reading through these reports because I sort of rely on these reports to find out on what businesses are doing locally and also the new businesses that we have coming to our town. I think it is important as elected members that we have that conduit of information, and I do thank the Gawler Business Development Group for providing that. It is good to see that our funding extension, we are going through a process now to keep this going because I do see the Gawler Business Development Group evolving, growing and really thriving in the past anomaly of economic distress. I think the businesses here in Gawler have gone through during this pandemic. So I'm happy to support this decision report and yeah, great work.
Any other discussion? If not, Deputy Mayor, are you happy for me to put the motion? I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, ladies. Okay, now you wanted to move an item forward, Councillor Shanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I was just wondering if I could move 18.13, so 18.13, just about the business hub.
So that's a motion to move 8.13 next.
Yes, just to bring that forward.
And discuss it next. So you've moved that motion, that item 8.13, Chris, be brought forward. seconded by councillor Davies. Any other discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. It is carried. Thank you. Now we'll go to 8.13 on page 68. So we can just make our way to 68. Okay. Councillor Hughes, I think you had your hand up first.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I'm happy to move the officers' report.
Okay, do you wish to speak to it?
Just briefly, I think what this offers is the hub to continue on the same way, but looking at other options into the future. But I think it's important that we work with the partners, the business development group, the Gawler, Barossa, Gawler, Light and Adelaide Plains Regional Development Board and other partners in the town. I think it's involving. It's good that the Gawler Business Development Group have already got a chair and a table there. I think they've picked up 2 members from the existing members there, talking to the chair. And I think that needs further work, but I do think that this sort of allows the hub to continue on, and I think we do need to get the regular reporting that item 4 in this motion points out to as well, and looking at a model for the future. But I think just this allows us to continue on and sort of gives the existing businesses that are using it some sort of surety as well. So happy to move the motion.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? You happy to second that, councillor Fraser? Do you wish to speak at all?
Yes, I am. I have read the proposition by the Gawler Business Development Group, and whilst I think it's possible that it probably could work, I don't know that we're actually ready for it. We certainly don't have the funding to go ahead with it now, because there is an actual input from the Gawler Council to do that, and that would mean an alteration to our budget, which is becoming more and more difficult, I think, the budget, the way it is. I think to do this and to trial different things in the next 12 months and see how they go, and then move on from there. I think that's the best way to go.
Thank you. Discussion. Councillor Shanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I'm actually against this motion. I was hoping to defer purely because there's some new information that I'm getting along the way. And I think we owe it to this hub's succession, given the history of the item, that we unpack all the items, all the options available to the elected body. I don't see the rush in turning around and saying that we need to lock it in for a further, the next financial year. And I'd like to actually defer this item to a future council meeting while some of those options are unpacked more, because it won't be long until we've now had ownership of the hub for a year and nothing's really coming to light or changing. And yeah, being commercial landlords is not something I'm really interested in the current climate. Given the fact that this is a business innovation hub, we have a Gawler Business Development Group. There's something we're missing here, and I'm not ready to sign off as business as usual until some of those items are unpacked a bit more. So I'm hoping that this won't get up, and I will be moving to defer it to unpack it a bit more.
Any other discussion? You've got your hand up, councillor Kosh, and I think then councillor Goldstein.
Oh, is that for me, Mayor?
Yep, yep.
Okay, yeah, look, I'm happy to support this motion. I think we need, we at the moment, I have looked at the proposal provided by the Gawler Business Development Group, and I don't think, as Councillor Fraser said, that we're in a position to dedicate extra funds to it, because it would be an extra probably $100,000, I imagine, close to $100,000. Just at the recent audit committee meeting, and as people would have read in the minutes, the audit committee is recommending that we take rate increase up to 3.5%. That's because of the deterioration in our budget globally. So I think we're not in a position to be allocating extra funds at the moment to this operation. And I think if we can tap into the existing roles that those two, the RDA and the Gawler Business Development Board already do, I think that's a good outcome for our community and for the hub in the short term and maybe even into the medium term. So I'm happy to support this motion as it is. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Councillor Goldstone, you're next.
Yes, I just wondered if we could get some comments from staff on the ramifications of deferring the item as suggested by Councillor Shanks.
Mr. Barrett.
So through the chair, the only ramification would be we wouldn't be doing any program delivery through the hub. We would just be maintaining existing management services of the co-working space. So there would be no development or incubator services provided in the hub until a decision around that operating model is made.
That's all right.
So through the chair, to respond to Councillor Shanks's question, the programming is not currently being delivered. We put that on hiatus when we took management over the 1st of October, while we worked on what this next iteration model would be, which is what we're considering tonight.
So you would say that then you would, if this got up, you would deliver those programs. Is that correct, Mr. Right? Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Goldstone? Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, Deputy Mayor, you can close the debate if you like.
Thanks. Yeah, I think we really, as a council, it would be really good to deliver those programs for those businesses. It's good to know that some of the businesses, like the recruitment businesses, Chile Recruitment won an innovation award, which is pretty amazing for our innovation hub. I just don't think we sell the successes of those businesses, and especially the businesses that were only in there for a short time and moved on and just outgrew and were very successful. I just don't think we've sold that very well to the community either. But I think we can, as a council, deliver this. Yes, I think there would be a cost to anyone else to council to take it over, and I'd like to sort of see council working in with all the partners to make it successful. So that's why I support this motion.
So the debate is closed. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? The motion is lost. Do you wish to move a deferral motion, Councillor Shanks?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Can I move to defer this item to the next council meeting, which allows a month to do a little bit of due diligence?
Okay. You want to second that? Councillor Goldstone is seconding, which is the June council meeting. You might want to put that in there, Chris, to the June 2022 council meeting. I can't see what you're doing, Chris. Sorry. Yep, thank you. Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. Any discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried unanimously. Thank you. So that deals with that. Now, Councillor Hughes, we'll move to 8.2. You.
Yeah, probably a similar motion. I'd like to defer this boundary reform motion to probably a future council meeting, but along the lines of the Mayor and the CEO discuss with the state government a more stringent process that looks at sharing costs and can guarantee no legal challenges for the boundary reform process, because yeah, I'm concerned with costs and I think.
So if we can just get the wording right, Deputy Mayor, that item 2 be deferred to a future council meeting.
To allow the Mayor and CEO to discuss.
So we'll leave that as a point 1.
Yeah,
point 2, the Mayor and the CEO be authorised to meet with state government representatives / ministers, relevant ministers
that's
on
important.
this matter to clarify cost recovery process.
Yeah, and just the process, so there's a stringent process, because it just doesn't seem to be.
And also to clarify, I think I heard you say something about legal, also to clarify legal protection for councils.
That's right.
Okay, councils, I think it, okay.
So,
do you want council or councils?
Well, I think it's for all councils. I think, unfortunately, we're one of the few that are going through, but it would be for all councils. So,
okay. Do you wish to? Are you happy with that wording?
I think so. I think that covers off the intent to try and get a better deal for those councils that want to look at their boundaries, and Gawler certainly needs a better deal than what's been offered.
I actually use the word relevant ministers, Chris.
Yeah.
Relevant ministers.
So there may be more than one.
Okay, wish to speak to it?
Yes, please. I think we do need a better process, something that's more watertight on costings, and I feel as though that this process is dragged on and been quite open-ended. We've already done some consultation, and my concern is we may have to repeat quite a lot of things that we've initially done in the process. So I think it's unfair. I'm also concerned about costs. I think we also need to have some guarantees the state government's actually going to, in principle, support and actually then back the process, so that if there is legal challenges or court action, that poor Gawler Council doesn't have to keep paying for legal fees and expenses. I don't think we have an open checkbook in this process. I think we need to take our ratepayers and our community of interest along with the process. It's really important, but I don't think anyone wants to see this becoming just a bureaucratic, expensive process that has no guarantees of actually even being completed. It's the previous process that we had for aligning boundaries was really unworkable, and this process was supposed to be a better guaranteed process, but it seems to have been watered down and sort of interpreted, I think, a bit differently than what I think the intent of the legislation was as well. So I do think we need that clarity from ministers and the government, and that support that if we are to go to any expense, that that expense is not just going to be an open checkbook and continuous, but even some sharing of costs and process. I just think it seems to be becoming quite an unfair process as well.
You happy to second that, Councillor Samble?
Thanks, Mayor Karen. I'm just surprised that this matter's even been brought to this council, because some months ago we decided, and it was done because of government advice, that this matter of boundary reform was not going to occur until after the new council was formed next year. And yet the government, as the Deputy Mayor said, we ain't got no, open checkbooks, 379,000. And this council has not had the Barossa Council and the Light Council even in the same room together talking about this whole thing. We do not know how they feel. They've never really told us how they feel. Well, they've told us personally, but I'm not going to tell you what they say.
They've written multiple letters.
Sorry?
They've written multiple letters.
Well, I think we need to know more about it, because I will never support boundary reform. I make it quite public about that. And here we're asked to spend 379,000. I second the motion, as the Deputy Mayor has said, that we defer it to a later meeting. But I think we've just got to be careful getting involved with this, because the government have been known to stuff things up before, and they're down to do it this way.
Any other discussion? Councillor Goldstone?
Yeah, I was actually okay with the officer's recommendation. I think the cost was within the boundaries of what was discussed at previous meetings. What worries me about this, and I'll probably support it, is it talks about a future council meeting. It doesn't mean a future council meeting of this current council. And I think it's our job to make this decision, not the new council. So I prefer to see that somehow to a future meeting of the current council or something along that line.
You happy to change that, Chair, to a future council meeting of the current council? Would that satisfy you, Councillor Goldstone? Any other discussion? Councillor Shen?
Yeah, look, I'm always for getting more information. I might come to as some surprise that boundary reform is one of those items that I've been asking for more information since we started the process. I was against spending 250,000 to get to this, to be honest, because I don't think we ask the appropriate questions of the right people of whom this is to affect. I also think we're selling out there the wrong messages. In the budget process, we're told ratepayers' dollars break even. As soon as we take over a suburb, we are having to use the ratepayer money to service that suburb. Makes sense. Obviously, open spaces, verges, you know. No argument from me there. And I consistently check in on that point every single budget process. Boundary reform has talked about taking over neighbouring suburbs. Neighbouring suburbs that I've put to you multiple times don't want to be a part of Town of Gawler, because unfortunately we have our own items we need to fix first before we become attractive to those ratepayers of doing a changeover. Like it or not, there is these figures and projects and money spent, and unfortunately it comes to a position where we have to explain a waste. $379,000 on top of what we've already spent, and by deferring, we're going to direct more time to be spent by our most expensive employee to keep on pursuing this. We don't have the support of our neighbours. We don't even have the support emphatically of our community, and the support we do have, I am worried, comes from a point of not realising that their back pockets will not be affected by ratepayers coming into our boundary. We have 42 square kilometres here. Let's get all that right, and then let's watch them try to bolt down the door to get in. We're not there yet, and not having the support of our neighbours, and also having this process being the test guinea pig, is something I'm not comfortable with. If I had all my ratepayers that I represent coming to me saying, pursue it, pursue it, pursue it, I would put my views aside, but I just do not have that. And I've actually hit the pavement and knocked on the doors of Hewitt residents, and they are not happy about this. Our community consultation, yes, Deputy Mayor Hughes is right, we have done it. And the numbers there are still ambiguous. And the percentages are still not there for the population of 26,000 we have here in the town of Gawler. And we preach that we service over 100,000, I think we're up to daily, because of our regional hub status. But we're talking about taking over a population of 3,000 in Hewitt, another few hundred in Gawler Belt, another, I think, under 100 in other neighbouring suburbs that are made up of 10 houses. I get the boundaries to have a look at, and I get the geographical reasoning why, but our Gawler community isn't defined by who we pay rates to.
Councillor Koch.
Thanks, Mayor. I don't think this is an argument about the merits or otherwise of boundary reform. We've put an application into the Boundaries Commission, and the Boundary Commission said yes, we have merit. So I think that's the first thing. Let's go beyond that. I suppose, and the other issue is whether the Gawler community supports it. My opinion is they do overwhelmingly. This issue really is about the process and whether we can get some commitments in place and milestones in place that say that it won't be an open-ended cash, checkbook, that will actually put in place some steps that says that we will achieve certain things at certain times, and there'll be some commitment from the state government through the investigations that it will move forward. That it just won't be another endless quest to have quangos, as they say. But so for me, I think this is good. I think we need to go back and actually define the process and agree on some agreed outcomes at certain points along the pathway. I think if we do that, that way we can go back to our community and say, yes, we have listened to you. We know the Gawler community wants boundary reform, and that we can say we've been judicial in the way that we've actually spent the money to achieve an outcome for our community. So I'm very happy to support this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Davies.
Yeah, I'm happy to support the motion. I think, look, I do think there's an extent to which I'm happy for us to, spend so that we can be doing better in the future. I think in some ways to this to me is sort of like climate change or that kind of thing. It's like in 30 years, what's going to be the cost of our failure to do this? It's not going to, if Concordia has 10,000 new houses built in the Barossa Council that rely on our infrastructure, and we don't have a unified system, is it only going to be 6 digits, 7 digits, 8 digits of money that would have to be paid to try and untangle all of that after it's already happened? So I think just in terms of, is boundary reform worthwhile? I've always said, look, this is something that is valuable future planning. But look, the thing is that we don't have, this is a new system. They're sort of improvising the rules as they go along. We do need to protect ourselves to some extent and say, well, let's talk about this a bit. Let's make sure that there's a limit here. We can't just obviously endlessly pay whatever, open-ended figure. We need some sort of assurances and some sort of consistency. But yeah, I'm happy to defer this and come back with more information.
Any other discussion? Councillor Little.
I'll reiterate what I said before. I was on the council when we opposed the subdivision at Hewitt. Every councillor that night on the council said we did not want Hewitt to go there for the reasons that Councillor Davies has expanded on, and so has Deputy Mayor Hughes. Like we said then, and I still say it now, I know in the cities, the councils abut each other, but in this area at that time, it's a different setup. We end up carrying the cost of those people. I've got people in my RSL who, when they moved to Hewitt, thought they were in Gawler. They didn't even know where the council chambers were. I had to point it out to them on a map. So I think the best part I like about this is we're not going to spend any more money. I think we've spent enough. And as was the case back in 2000 or whatever it was, 98, I think, we said no, but the government said yes, it's going there anyway. So I think we leave it to the boundary reform and let them sort it out. Thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, Deputy Mayor, you can close the debate. You're happy for me to put the motion? I'll put that motion. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hands. All those against? It is carried. Thank you. Now, moving on to page 19 and third quarter budget review. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I'm happy to move this motion. Do note that we are deferring some capital expenditure. I think everyone understands that capital projects are taking longer. It's hard to get materials, hard to get employees, and yeah, most projects are taking a lot longer, if not, they do get extended. Yeah, we have had some savings, and there is some changes in how some of the grants are coming in, which is going to affect our bottom line of our budget and our budgeting process as well for the next financial year too, which is going to be interesting. But yeah, no, happy to support this motion.
Do I have a second? Councillor Samble, do you wish to speak at all, Brian? No, you're good. Councillor Shanks.
I just had some questions first, Mayor, if I could.
Sure.
Obviously, the quarterly reports are always influenced by actuals. So I've just got a question on how many staff have we lost that has informed this?
So the question is, have staff losses impacted this decision?
No. So I know that staff losses have informed a saving, obviously. But I'm just wondering, I think it was 400,000 or something. I'm just wondering how many staff that makes up.
CEO? Paul? Anybody? Any takers? No?
Through the chair, in relation to number of employees it relates to, me, I'd need to take that on notice. But yes, as Councillor Shanks has indicated, we have reported that there is savings from positions vacant, but relative to the definitive number, if that's what you're seeking, I'd need to take that on notice.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Next question.
Yeah, next question. I note that it's around, where is it? 5.26 million in capital expenditure is being deferred. How much capital expenditure do we have down for this financial year in total?
Mr. Delena or Mr. Paulwood, who'd like to answer that question in capital expenditure? Paul, thank you. There we go.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, with the that's referenced in the attachment relating to capital expenditure.
Yep.
And I guess I refer members to page 159 of 362 of the attachments. The adopted budget for this year from CapEx perspective was just under $16 million, and the revised position proposed tonight is just over 10.5 million.
Okay, thank you.
So just confirming, we've been able to deliver 2/3 of our budget that we approved last June.
I think that equates to my mathematics. Is that correct? Yep, that would be a yes.
No worries. All right, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to speak if I could. Yeah, look, I probably more than most know the trying times of the industry at the moment. I know the ducking and weaving that we've had to learn to do. This isn't new anymore for us. What I guess is frustrating as an elected member is we now see in a quarterly review that we're only going to be able to deliver 2/3 of what we told our community, we promised our community that we were going to deliver in this financial year. Now, I know this isn't done with malice intent, but that doesn't change the outcome. The outcome here is that 2/3 are going to be delivered and 1/3 not. Now, some of the problem in that is that 1/3 not being delivered is the decision that has been taken away from elected members, and we are simply told. It's not ideal, and there is a level of importance that we have to navigate out there for our elected, who we're representing. And to do so, we need to be informed as things come on. as things happen. The only reason that this amount of CapEx was endorsed in the first place was all staff recommendations. And this was June last year. This was not at the start of a pandemic. This was on the back end of learning how to navigate as other businesses have had to. It's disappointing that we get to this point in time. And again, I understand it's not with malice intent, but that doesn't help what we need to explain out there. And unfortunately, this isn't the first rollover. This is a consistent item where we keep on seeing projects move on and move on. We're getting a bottleneck. And I think Councillor Hughes, or Deputy Mayor Hughes brought it up fantastically in a committee meeting, saying that these rollovers actually do affect our bottom line. If they keep on rolling over, it's really, really difficult for us to make informed decisions, because each year we're told we're going to be in a deficit, but naturally we're in a surplus. And all the items that we wanted to put forward, or that are above and below the line, somehow get watered down, because unfortunately, the $16 million that we spent so much time going back and forth on has now only been delivered 2/3 of it. And right now we're in a budget process where we're doing exactly the same thing, and we're $5 million worth of projects behind already before we enter into the next CapEx recommendation expenditure. Again, I get the industry restraints at the moment, and I get what we have to do to get things across the line. It doesn't seem to translate into local government, which is a pain, and I am still trying and understand that. But we need to get on top of this, because we're acting on recommendations that we received June last year. Well, not me personally, because as you know, I voted against the budget last year, but this was recommended to come here, and we're only delivering 2/3 on it in the current climate that isn't new as of June 30th last year. So I'm happy to support this report, because it does publicly bring up these problems, but we need to be better in this space.
Any other discussion? Councillor Koch, you have your hand up.
Yeah, look, thanks, Mel. I'm happy to support this. I just want to make some comments about the capital expenditure. At the audit committee, we went through a lot of the reasons why this is an issue. I mean, you only have to look at the issues in Ukraine. You only have to look at the issues around which has caused the price of fuel to go up, a whole lot of other expenses to go up. We've got cost of living expenses. We've got the CPI has gone up, inflation has gone up. These are real things. These are real things we have to deal with. There are supply chain issues, materials, etc. These are real things. We need to be nimble, and we need to protect our budget as much as possible by being responsible. We should not be saying we're going to borrow more and more money and put more and more pressure on our ratepayers just to achieve some capital expense that we think that we should be doing. That happened 10, 12 years ago. We were borrowing $2 to $3 million to do those sort of things. We should not be going down that track. So I'm quite happy to support this. I think that the staff have been very responsible and responsive to the ongoing situation that we're facing within Gawler and within the world. So I'm quite happy to support this. Thank you.
CEO?
Yes, I'd like to make a couple of comments, and unfortunately, I again just respectfully disagree with some of the comments that Councillor Shanks has made, in that when we are in June and we are setting the budget, we do so on the basis of the best intelligence, the best information that we have. And in June, we didn't have the benefit of knowing that there was going to be a war in Europe, and we didn't have the benefit of knowing that there was going to be a 20-year high in terms of inflation. We didn't know in June that we were going to have a flood of staff being poached from the private sector in terms of engineering and so forth. So every best intention has been pursued. The budget is reviewed on a quarterly basis. Elected members are presented with as much information as we have at those particular points in time. And yes, we need to reflect when and how we can deliver projects, and we do. And we provide that information again with the best ability and capacity that we have in terms of presenting council the capacity to make those decisions at that point.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Deputy Mayor, you can close the debate. Are you happy for me to put the motion? I'll put that, the debate is closed. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. It is carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we move on to 8.4, Dog and Cat Management Act fees and charges. Happy to move that way, Councillor Little. Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Vallelonga. Any discussion? Councillor Shanks.
Yeah, just a question. How come we're higher than our neighbours?
I beg your pardon?
How come we're higher in our fees than our neighbours?
Isn't it a cost neutral exercise? So it depends on what we do, and we charge, and we can't charge and make a profit. That's my understanding. Do you want to clarify that, Jack?
Through the chair, we also have additional costs through our housing program that we have with our dog pound. We actually look after dogs more so than what we do in the other areas. So feeding, cleaning, looking after the pound. So there's additional costs associated with that, which those councils utilise our pound as well for their dogs.
So we're subsidising other councils. That's really good.
That's right.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, I think that answers that question. Any other discussion? If there's no further discussion,
Yes.
Sorry, Councillor Kosh, I beg your pardon.
That's all right.
Yep.
Yeah, I've just got one question. In the schedule, it talks about assistance dogs. Should we be saying that assistance dog brackets are those who pass their public access accreditation?
Mr. Darzanos, you could address that question. Thank you.
Through the chair, that is a possibility, but under the Act itself, it actually identifies what an assistance dog is. So it's really just shortening the abbreviation.
Okay, so it does include the public access certificate accreditation?
Correct. Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, Councillor Little, you happy for me to put the motion? I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. It is carried unanimously. Thank you. Participatory budgeting, happy to move that way, Councillor Davies.
Yeah, look, this is something that I have been obviously, pushing for a while, and I think it's great that it's been such a success, and that we've had a lot of input from local community residents telling us what they want in their town. I think we sort of narrowed it down to a few. I think there are a lot that were good ideas that, just didn't fit in one way or another, in that, it might have been over the budget threshold, which, we can, I guess, address in the future when I move this in the future to come again next year. A bit of, a little surprise for you there. Because just in terms of like, it says, oh, how would you spend $40,000? But the limit is $20,000 per project, and some people submitted $40,000 bids and we can't accept them, that kind of thing. We can work through that over time, but I think there's some really good, drinking fountains, solar lights, barbecues at parks. Like, these are all the kind of stuff that, that I was wanting to see out of this to see which areas local residents cared about. So quite happy with this process and glad to send it off to voting.
Happy to second that. Councillor Goldstone, do you wish to speak at all? Any other discussion? I've got Deputy Mayor, and then I've got Nathan Shanks, Councillor Shanks.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to thank everyone that actually put a bid in, and some of them went to a lot of trouble getting quotes and photos, and a lot of trouble with the ideas. So I think it's something that we as a group that met and looked at the all of the submissions we're looking at for future possible projects, and passing through to staff through different ways as well. So there was some fantastic ideas, and it was just really good to see the ideas and the enthusiasm and the photos and the quotes, and yeah, it was great to see. So yeah, just amazing amount of work went in to most of the applications, which was really good.
Yeah, I too was really excited about this initiative when Councillor Davies did bring it into the chamber first up, and it also needs to be noted that this is our first go at it as well, but I think it's been positively received. I am glad that you did speak to it, because I was trying to figure out the no overspend. They came over, and I was sort of wondering, well, why was that confusion there? So I'm glad that you cleared that up. But for first run, and seeing these fundamental items that our ratepayers are calling out for, and using this positive platform to call out for it, I think is only contributing to having that ratepayer engage in their own spend. I mean, realistically, they're the shareholders of the company. So having that, having that opportunity to be able to put these ideas forward, and again, it's the simple stuff, the drinking fountains in playgrounds, it's solar lights at Apex Park. You know, I think this is really fantastic, and being its first go, I can only see it growing from here. And I hope that, the next term do follow on with this great work. So yeah, look, this has my full support, and I thank everyone for making their submissions, and also a thanks to the panel who dedicated their time to review all this as well.
Any other discussion? If not, Councillor Davies, you happy for me to put the motion? Put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. So we're moving on to 8.6, funding opportunities. You happy to move that way, Councillor Deputy Mayor Hughes?
Yes, I am, Mayor. I think this is a really good way forward to keep working with the state government and try and sort of get some partners as well, especially with the soccer pitch. And I think that's really important to build that, and it's so important to build the partnerships with the state government and local member and other processes, but also get the community ownership, especially projects like the synthetic soccer pitch, which is a bit out there, but there are sponsors, and the soccer club is doing really well, and it's just working in with the community. I think it's a really good way to go.
I think an acknowledgement of our local member and the initiatives is in order for this particular matter. I think that it's bringing in quite a bit of money into Gawler, and it's only good for our community. So I thought that would be appropriate to acknowledge that. Now, are you finished, Deputy Mayor? Yep.
I'm quite happy to have a thanks there if we want to actually thank our local member. I mean, we did want a playground at Reed, and now we're going to get a great one. And the soccer has been crying out for many years for the synthetic. Hockey have got theirs at Trinity College. So yeah, no, I think it may be a thank you to our local member, and just we just need to build on those partnerships, whether it be state or federal partnerships, and it's just so important.
So I'm just looking at that point 7. Thanks to the local member, Mr. Piccolo, for his efforts in this regard.
Yeah, that would be good. Thanks.
Okay. Regard. Sorry, Chris. Thank you. Okay, so we have a mover. Are you happy to second? Do you wish to speak at all?
Yeah, look, just to say, I agree that it's great that our local MP, Tony Piccolo, was able to secure this much, particularly considering it's a safe seat, or, I mean, it's especially a safe seat now that he's won it by 20%, but
apparently it's not a safe seat.
Yeah, well, no seats are safe, but some seats get more funding than others. And those seats tend to be the ones that have a small margin. But, you know, even though, you know, it's not necessarily a seat that you would think would get a lot of funding, I'm glad that we were able to, our local member was able to secure a bunch of stuff for a variety of people and sporting clubs and such around the town. So I'm glad that we're able to get that here in this town.
I've got Councillor Kosh with his hand up. So Councillor Kosh, you have the floor.
Yeah, yes, just a question on the soccer pitch. Is there any is there any indication where we might be able to find some more grant funding? Because there's a 1.4 deficit, million deficit.
I don't really mind somebody, if they could provide an answer, that'd be lovely. Thank you.
So through the chair, we'll obviously keep our eyes open for any funding opportunities that are available. The Office of Rec, Sport and Racing generally do community infrastructure grants, although they're on hold while the new government is bedding in. We also have an opportunity under the Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Program, which is the federal government money. We've been advised through the federal budget that there's an additional $750 million in that funding to come to be distributed around to councils. So it's likely that the town of Gawler will receive between 400 and 500,000 of that money that we can consider allocating to this project in the future as well. So there are a couple on the boil at the moment, and we'll keep council updated as we go.
Thank you. Good.
Thank you. Thank you for that response. Councillor Goldstone.
Yeah, look, I'm happy to support this. Just by the by, my grandson plays for the Gawler under-8. Gawler equals under-8s that can't be for reserve on a Sunday morning. I went down there the week before last. The place was packed. Every pitch was being used. I've never seen so many little kids running around kicking the ball in one place. So it's a very popular place and a popular sport. So happy to support this.
Thank you for that feedback. I think it's really good to see things being used, and the more we invest, the more people will use them. So I think it's fantastic. Any other discussion? If not, Deputy Mayor, you happy for me to put the motion? I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. It is carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we're moving on to 8.7, and I'm on page 40 of our agenda. Councillor Hughes, Deputy Mayor, beg your pardon.
Yeah, happy to move this. I think it's a straightforward matter with the shed and the storage, and yeah, I'd like to get this moving. So yeah, happy to support.
Do I have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Little, thank you. Do you wish to speak at all, Councillor Little? Any discussion? Councillor Fraser.
I won't be voting for this. Whilst I would really like to see the Vintage Club move in there, if they could, with us putting containers up for the storage for the showgrounds, then I would. I'm just not happy with spending more money. I think our budget's really tight, and I'm just not happy with just, you know, suddenly we just get something that's going to add an extra $80,000 to the budget. So that really upsets me. I don't know whether it's possible to use this, the containers while we're looking for funding to build the shed or not, but I can't vote for this the way it is.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I think I saw Councillor Shanks and then Councillor Sample.
Yeah, look, I understand what Councillor Fraser is saying, and I completely respect that position. I guess after talking to some of the car club members that are in the know on the whole process that they've been trying to follow, I get the sense that they're at their wit's end. I get the sense that it's this or nothing. I listened to Mr. Bailey tonight point out the offer that they genuinely, they in good faith offered us earlier in the piece, and we couldn't seem to get that across the line. Unfortunately, not being in the room with the conversations, I don't know how or why we didn't capitalise on that. You know, if they're looking for just a block, surely we can do a stock take and figure out, yes, this is the block for you guys. Build your shed at your cost. You know, But then that said, I've been listening to Mr. Bailey again tonight and say, look, we can't keep on waiting. And we know the Gawler Car Club is a 700 member strong club. We know the benefits they bring to our town. I think this solution might not quite be the solution that it should be. But that said, I think the time is running out, and I think action is needed in this space. And if this is the action that gets them some roots here in the town and keeps them in the town and stops them from talking to our neighbouring councils that might have some land ready to go, then I think this is, needs the support of elected members. I get the additional spend is intimidating given the budget, but there's a whole other raft of budget questions we need to be asking by saying, no, we're going to put this below the line, $80,000, when we're pursuing other items at massive costs that don't have this much support in the community. So I'm happy to support this, and yeah, I just wish there was some other way, but I understand the frustration of the car club.
Councillor Samble. Okay. Any other discussion? If not, I'm going to...
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. Sorry, Councillor Kosh. I keep trying to look over there. Your turn. Yes, you've got...
Look, I'm happy to support this. You only have to look at the history. This car club has actually pursued a number of different places to put this facility, and they did actually spend a lot of money doing investigations on Little Paxton Street. So they are committed to having a home in Gawler. That's obvious. They are putting up some of their funds as well. We may be able to get a grant down the line, because before, when it was linked in with the greyhounds, there would have been no chance of getting any grants. But this time, it's actually it's a three-way community facility. Ultimately with the car club, the Show Society, and council. So you've probably got a better chance of securing some grant funding potentially. So. I'm quite happy to support it, because I do think it does. There is big community demand from the club members to have this facility, and they have really worked very hard at trying to find a home. And this looks like an obvious, not an obvious, but a workable solution. So I'm happy to support it.
Councillor Samble.
Thank you, Mayor Karen. As has been said, there is a need for the car club to set up in excess of 700 members. There is a site. It's between the bowling club and the tennis courts, and I ask of you all to drive past there and imagine a building that is going to be serviceable for 700 members, and it's going to be paid for by the car club. It's not, come on, council, give us some money. The ground is there, all the car club wants. I was surprised Mr. Bailey didn't mention that tonight. He did mention it, but he didn't say the car club wanted it. My opinion for the car club to go, and I'm a member of it, the same as Councillor Ballalonga, and it will not fit inside the grounds of Essex Park. It is going to be a mess. Mark my word, 5 years' time, you'll see it's right.
Any other discussion? Deputy Mayor, you happy for me to put the motion? I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? It is carried. Thank you. So we're going to move on to Caravan Park, Gawler Caravan Park, and I'm on page 50 of the agenda. And we have a recommendation. Are you happy to move that way, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I think this is a straightforward changeover, so yeah, quite happy.
Yep, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Samble, do you wish to speak at all, Brian? Any Councillor Fraser?
On page 51 of 110, we're talking down the bottom section A to I. B says capital improvement plan. Have these been done, or are they actually just still to be done? In attachment 2, it's to do with attachment 2.
Who'd like to answer that? Chris Parrish. Mr. Parrish, come to the microphone. Thank you very much. I wondered why you were sitting there.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair. Through you, those capital improvements are a part of the original lease that was approved back in February. So every one of those items is yet to be completed. Notably, the main one is the entranceway, which is currently being undertaken. So the new lessees have agreed to carry through with all of those capital improvements, which will be reviewed every 5 years at the market review.
I think that addresses your question. Thank you, Mr. Parrish. Any other discussion? If not, Deputy Mayor, you happy for me to put the motion? I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. 8.9. How do you wish to proceed, Council? You happy to move that way?
Just like to speak on one section of it though. And I would like to think that when we have a new council, that they do a governance thing. So I think it's really important that council realises the protocol of between governance and operation, and I think sometimes that gets a bit blurred, and I think that it needs to be stipulated a little bit more.
Thank you, Councillor Fraser. We've got a mover. Do we have a seconder? Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I'll support the motion. I do think, I agree with Councillor Fraser that the new council should also review this, and yeah, I think the email protocol is getting there. I don't think it's probably tough enough, but I mean, who adjudicates, that's always going to be an issue, and yeah, I think it's got the options in the process. It's in the implementation. Yeah, Councillor Fraser's very correct in the governance, operations, and the responsibilities of councillors, and also the fact that we as councillors aren't involved in the operations, the day-to-day running, and we respect the staff and work collaboratively and back the staff with our motions and their reports and work together as well, which is an important relationship in local government, which needs to be well understood by councillors too, and it can lead to problems, so it's really important. But yeah, I think the email protocol would be one that the new council and some of the other areas would look at the procedure, but yeah, I'm happy to support it as is.
Any other discussion? Councillor Shanks.
Yeah, I won't be supporting this. I think there is so many rules and regulations already around complaints and code of conducts and et cetera, et cetera. I've only been involved in one Part 3 breach of the code, and given that's in confidence, I can't really talk about that one, but at least I had the opportunity to deal with it on an elected member side, putting all the onus on the presiding member, I don't think actually offers any protection to that role. Unfortunately, I think that the coming to council actually provides the opportunity for a collective decision to be made, and it doesn't come through to the Ombudsman for investigation straight up. So I don't, that's one of the points. The emails, the emails. Unfortunately, it's the only way that the lines of communication seem to be open. Look, I'm used to the emails. I'm used to a very different email style in my world. And the policing of such is always going to come down to the subjective person at the time. I completely agree with Deputy Mayor on relationships, and they are very important. They also work both ways. That is also very important to make the point of. You know, working in a team is exactly that. So the way that this complaints handling procedure has been put forward, I'm not there yet, to be completely honest. There's a whole bunch in here that I don't see benefiting us, and if need be, can be used. Not saying it will, but it has the potential of being used to and can result in more counterproductive exchanges. And I've seen enough of that in my time, and I don't see this actually assisting with that. So I'm going to speak against this one tonight.
Any other discussion? If not, Councillor Fraser, are you happy for me to put the motion? I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. All those against? It is carried. Thank you. Councillor Shanks has called a division. The motion is set aside. All those in favour, please stand, and I'll call you out. Councillor Kosh, you keep your hand up if you can, so I can count you. I'll count you first. Councillor Kosh, Councillor Davies, Councillor Goldstone, Councillor Hughes, Deputy Mayor Hughes, sorry, because your name's not Deputy Mayor Hughes. I keep getting caught there. Councillor Fraser, please stay standing. All those against are Councillor Vallelonga, Councillor Little, Councillor Shanks and Councillor Samble. The motion is carried. Thank you very much. You may take your seats. Thank you. Right, so that concludes that one. Now we move on to 8:10:56. How are we going here? We have an officer's recommendation, really supporting the Australian Local Government Association. You happy to move that way, Councillor Little? I think we have had a win in local government with the new federal government. They've pledged more money than the opposition. So I think that's a win for local government and for local communities, as I think Dave mentioned. You happy to second, Deputy Mayor? Do you wish to speak at all, Councillor Little? Okay. Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak at all?
Just briefly, yeah, it is straightforward, but yeah, it's an important process that's going through, and yeah, I think yeah, the more support we can get, the better, because it's not just local government on its own as well. It's a whole of Australia effort, so it's important.
Thank you. Any other discussion? This Councillor Shanks.
Yeah, I mean, call me a politician, new, but I found this report really informative, Chris. So thank you very much for that. Just putting in the point number 2 there, 6.46 billion really nails it home. And you're right, Mayor. When we talk about Australian local government, we're not alone. We are a part of a bigger picture, and I think this support is sort of paramount in making sure that we are wanting to be a part of that bigger picture, not only statewide but nationally as well. So I'm yeah, I found this report really interesting to read. So again, thanks for that one.
Any other discussion? If not, councillor Little, are you happy for me to put the motion on? I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we're moving on to 8.11, review of statement on climate change. Happy to move that way, councillor Davies. You happy to second, councillor Shanks? Do you wish to speak at all, mover? Seconder, do you wish to speak at all? Any other discussion? If there's no further discussion, I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we've done that one. 8.12. On page 65. You happy to move that way, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, this is straightforward agreement with yeah, the Department of Transport for crossovers, and we've already had this in the last council meeting, I think was, so it's same.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for this motion? Happy to move that way. Second, thank you, councillor Davies. Any discussion? Councillor Shanks.
Sorry, man, just a question. We did see a report into the last council meeting. Is this just a extra parcels? Yeah, that's what I thought. And are they all in relation to the Gawler Cycleway, or they're just...
They're different.
They're different. Yeah, there's a package. That's what I sort of thought. Yeah. Some are, but some aren't. Is that correct?
Some are and some aren't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I saw the bits that were cutting through and the yeah. Do you want to add anything, Mr. Delina, that's not in the report? Okay.
Through you, Mayor. Just to clarify, there was a previous report that sought delegation to sign up on Warren Street, the main crossing that we needed to cross the railway. It was brought up quite late in the piece when we were finalising the agreement to sign it, that they wanted to put these additional parcels in and weren't prepared to sign just the one. Hence, we didn't have delegation, then we had to come back to the council in that regard.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further discussion, I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? It is carried. Thank you. Now, what am I up to now? I've done that. $8.14. I'm up to 8.14. Okay. You're happy to, I think I actually saw your hand first. You wish to move, Kelvin? Thank you. Seconded by Deputy Mayor. Are you happy to second? Is that what you're wanting to do? So we have a mover and we have a seconder. Any discussion? If there's no discussion, I'm going to put yes. Happy with that? Okay. I actually think point 4, as Mayor, I should write a letter to, so the Mayor writes a letter of thanks. Peter Brass has been with us for a really, really long time. And as Mayor, he's been outstanding as an independent member. I can ring him up anytime. He answers, he provides advice without fear or favour. So I think it's appropriate that the Mayor writes a letter of thanks to Mr. Peter Brass. Thank you, Chris. Okay, thank you for that indulgence. I think that's appropriate. Any other discussion? If not, Councillor Goldston, you happy for me? Put that motion. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Carried unanimously. Thank you. So that concludes decision reports. We do have information reports and we can move them en bloc if we wish. Where are we? Councillor Davies. You happy to move en bloc? Yep. You have the floor.
Right. So just speaking to 9.1, the Place of Courage Memorialisation Project, it will be good to see that art go up in our pocket park, as we like to call it. Though, I mean, I think the next step would hopefully be to give it a name. I mean, I know pocket park seems to be a little phrase that we came up with that everyone's attached to, but
PPE.
yeah, but you know, the something park, you know, just something to think about in the future, but it'll be good to see the artwork go up there.
Lovely. So we have a mover. Do we have a seconder to move en bloc? You happy to move that way, Councillor Fraser? Do you wish to speak at all on any item? Open it up to the floor. Councillor Shanks, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I'll just be speaking to the grants update. I just really wanted to reiterate and congratulate staff that we're able to secure 5.2 million in grant funding, external funding, to inject back into the community that's not coming from ratepayers. I mean, admittedly, it's coming from taxpayers, which we all are, but regardless, they were able to secure that $5.2 million, and we're going to contribute 3 million into that. So a total of $8.2 million should hopefully see some positive outcomes. And it's the grant chasers that we have on staff that I think I've said it before, but they're the silent assassins, the real heroes that are able to secure that funding. Yes, we don't get them all across the line. It'd be fantastic if we did, but the hit rate, I think, is pretty good. Yeah, it's just a credit to the staff with that $5.2 million. So I just really wanted to reiterate that.
Any other discussion? Thank you, Councillor Shanks. Any other discussion on this matter? If not, Councillor Davies, you happy for me to put the motion? I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Carried unanimously. Thank you. So we're moving on to recommendations. Do we want a break? Have a quick break before we go into committees? We can have a 10-minute break and we come back at 9:05. Thank you, everyone. Just allows us to stretch our legs. So it's come to my attention that tonight is Mr. Sam Delina's last meeting. He's about to leave us and go to the dark side. First of all, congratulations on the new position. Thank you for all that you've done for the town of Gawler. You've been here a number of years now, 7 years. You had nightmares over the Gawler East Link Road. I remember that very, very clearly. But there are many other projects you've been involved in. So I'd just like to formally say thank you for your service to the town of Gawler, Sam. You've been a great asset. You will be sorely missed. You'll have big shoes to fill. But as I always think, one door closes, another door opens. There's always an opportunity for someone else. So thank you. I don't know if you want to say anything, but you don't have to. But I think it might be nice if you did say something.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for the opportunity. I didn't actually know this was coming up tonight, but
Unaccustomed as you are to public speaking.
I've had more intense forums to talk to. I remember speak a number of forums on the link road with yourself. Pretty heated environments, and certainly
300 people in the room.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, those nightmares are behind me now, but certainly that great opportunity Town of Gawler presents for any professional to work here. It's a very challenging environment, and I think something that I reflect on that councillors probably don't really understand is that you're dealing with not just running a business, but you're also running a growth business. It's two businesses that you're sort of managing, and sort of beyond what other councils have to deal with, and it does bring its pressures and opportunities. So the professional development for the Town of Gawler is off the scales in that regard, and that's probably why you're seeing a lot of our staff being poached by private enterprise, and some really good players in that space as well. So it's a credit to the business, but it's also a detriment because we restart, and it means that there's some delays from time to time, and we don't necessarily get it right while we're dealing with the transition. So I suppose I just want to thank members for the opportunity, the patience, the relationships. It hasn't always been easy, but we work together and we can get it done. And I think when you look back at what this council has delivered over the last 4 years, collectively, it's bloody impressive. So, and I think that's something that's been put together for the candidate briefing sessions, just some, an overview of what's been achieved collectively. Should all be proud of what we've done. So thank you.
Thank you, Sam, and good luck for your future endeavours. Yeah, hopefully, we'll see you around the trap sometime. Okay, so back to business. Okay, so I'm now on page 95, and we're starting recommendations from committees, and the first one is the Gawler Youth Advisory Committee, and we have a couple of recommendations there, so we'll work through them one by one. Councillor Davies, do you wish to move the first one?
Yeah, we're adding Hannah Lucas to the committee, who came to the committee through her involvement in the Gawler Youth Band, which has been quite a successful little project that's been happening, formed in our youth space. I went along a couple of weeks ago to watch them film for their music video. I was an extra in the background at one point. I didn't get to make it to the actual event, but so I haven't seen whether I starred in it as a just anonymous crowd member cheering to the music, but I think Hannah will be quite good, and I'm glad that we're able to get youth getting involved from various different events that we're doing in our town, and being able to turn that into a gateway into even more involvement.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Shanks. Any other discussion? If not, I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those in favour, raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Next is Youth Development Officer update. That we note the report. You happy to move that way, Councillor Shanks? Do I have a seconder? I actually saw Councillor Goldstone first, so seconded by Councillor Goldstone. Any discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thirdly, talking about the sports sponsorship, youth sports sponsorship. Are you happy to move that way, Councillor Fraser? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Samble, any discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we'll move over to the recommendations from the Infrastructure and Environmental Services Committee meeting held on the 3rd of May. The first page is for noting. In fact, the first 2 pages are for noting, and over the page as well, just to finish that off. So happy to move that way. Thank you, Councillor Davies. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Hughes, and this is for noting. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. The next one, well, they're for noting, so they're on block anyway. Is that what you mean? Or you mean the recommendations, the other recommendations? Well, I've done the noting ones and now on page 98. Yep. So the first 2 pages and a bit for noting and yeah, I'll do we just note the lost motion in the electric vehicle update charging thingy. Yes.
Well, just clarify with Councillor Koch, I think he was interested in moving some version of this, just wondering what was.
Oh, he's got his hand up. How about we go to Councillor Koch? Councillor Koch.
Yeah, I just want to get some advice on this one. I would be quite happy to move one. It might be a motion without notice, I suppose, but part 1, part 3, but not part 2. Is it possible to do that, or can we do that now?
Well, you could. So you're suggesting that we move 1, council-owned charges available is recommended for the cost of electricity that will be provided to users, and 3, a charging plan be undertaken with support. If you wish, you could move that and test.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to move. Just those two. I'll just speak to it.
You certainly can. So
Yes.
Chris is 1 and 3 only.
Yeah, could you just roll it down a little bit so I can see it again?
Oh, Chris will take out point 2 in a minute.
Okay,
Give her a minute and she'll be able to do that for us. It's okay.
Okay, I can speak to that.
Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see that now. Yep.
You've got the floor.
Okay. The first part is that people that own electric cars don't want a free ride. They do what they're quite happy to pay for the power they use, and they're very appreciative of councils or whoever putting in the infrastructure that they can use to use their cars. So everyone's happy to pay. Nobody's saying that they don't want to pay for the power, and they're very appreciative. So that the first one, we should be at the moment. I think it's free because I don't actually use it, but I think people are quite happy to pay for it. So there's not an issue there, and we should be asking people to pay for it. The second one is that we will need to move to electric vehicles in time. Now, with the change in federal government, there'll be a push towards electric vehicles as part of their strategy to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So we need to be on the front foot to implement that transition within council, which then flows onto the wider community. So that's why I'm asking for support on those 2 items. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Little, thank you. Do you wish to speak at all? Yep.
Yeah, in relation to electric vehicles, I agree with Councillor Koch in the budget that's coming out this October and federally. I know for a fact they're going to bring out a tax concession for people who purchase electric vehicles. The tax will be reduced to bring the cost of them down. So I think any forward step that we can take to help in that regard, I think it's a great asset. It would be a great asset for the council and put us on the front foot, like Councillor Koch said. So I know for a fact that they're going to do that. So I'm quite happy to support that motion.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councillor Shanks?
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything that's been said. I'm just against point 2 dropping out. I see no harm in some further investigations with Tesla, and I see no harm in a detailed report being brought back to the IES on some site-specific proposals from a company like Tesla. So yeah, I was happy the way the recommendation was, and I don't disagree at all with that electric vehicles are worth looking into, and we're even looking into our own fleet, a greener way of driving, etc., etc. But yeah, I just don't see the need to drop 0.2 out at this point in time, to be honest.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councillor Davies?
Yeah, well, just sort of going over, I guess, sort of what happened at the IES. I think there was sort of, people were sort of mixed for a few reasons, and I think part of it was just some final sort of confirmation about just Tesla and, you know, universal access to chargers and not Tesla proprietary chargers and all of this kind of thing. It was sort of, you know, and maybe if more information comes, that can be something that can just show up on a separate occasion. But for now, you know, I mean, both of those things that are up there sound good to me, so I can support the motion.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, Councillor Kosh, you can wrap it up.
Well, do you want me to repeat what I said about Tesla? I won't, but yeah, just those two are fine, I think.
Thank you. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against, it is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
So 10.2.2, I'm going to declare a perceived conflict as a member of the Garrock committee. However, it's only a perceived conflict. I will stay in the meeting and make any decision in the best interest of the community. So I've declared that. And we've got a recommendation here. How do we wish to proceed, Councillor? Move that way, Deputy Mayor. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Fraser. Any discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. And I'm going to go over the page. Hard waste collection. Happy to move that way. Thank you, Councillor Shanks. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Fraser. Any discussion? Councillor Shanks.
Yeah, just quickly, there was good discussion had at the IES about this item, and this is one of those items that we've introduced in our council, and the uptake has been fantastic, and we're only going to continue with that service. I think when it first came to the elected members, I made the point that by supporting this, we're now aligning with some neighbouring councils that are already doing the hard waste collection. And seeing this sort of uptake is a very positive thing. Obviously, you know, some of the costs on the levies that have gone up, which is a shame, and we do have to monitor and manage. But yeah, look, I'm really happy that we're continuing on with this service.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please. Oh, sorry, hang on a minute. Councillor Kosh, you had your hand up. Did you?
Yeah, just quickly. Yes, look, I'll be supporting this, but I think we need to really look at when we do our budgets again, just the schedule of fee that we pay across this item, and whether we can, I suppose, look at the fees and make a decision about that down the track. But quite happy to support it at the moment because it is a very popular initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now put this motion. Thank you. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. It is carried unanimously. Thank you. So we're moving on to Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on the 17th of May. And we have the first page is for noting. You happy to move that way, Councillor Davies? Thank you. Happy to second, Deputy Mayor. If there's no further discussion, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. So we move over to Business Continuity Plan 10.3.1. Happy to move that way. Councillor Davies, thank you. And seconded by Deputy Mayor. If there's no further discussion, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Can I just do that vote again? I'm sorry. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now, in this next one, it is talking about a 3.5% general rate increase. my view is that we split this motion. We adopt point 1 and 2 and 3, and point 4, we note the feedback, and then at some point during our budget process, we discuss it in more detail. I think that might be a better way forward. So I'm suggesting that we split the motion, that we have 1, 2 and 3 is adopted as it states, and then from 4 onwards is a separate motion that council notes the feedback. So does that make sense? I just think we haven't had enough discussion on this 3.5%. Yes, it's been presented at the audit committee, but I think we need a little bit further. Happy to be corrected, but that's the first time it's come up, and I think that we need to consider it before we adopt. You know, it just makes it a bit, yeah, I think it's a bit rushed. Are you happy to move that way, Councillor Little?
Yeah, I moved the first 3 parts, as you stated there.
Yeah.
I for the same reasons. First time it's come up, and I'd like to have a bit more time to have a look at it. So
Yeah.
I'd like to move to 1, 2 and 3 at the moment.
Thank you.
And then have a separate motion for the other one.
Yeah, and I'll give Chris the wording for the next part. So we've got Councillor Little moving 1, 2 and 3. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Goldstone. Do we have discussion at all on that, on this part of the? I'm actually, I note the feedback. So 4, 5 and 6, the feedback provided should probably sit under 4. Notes that an update, I think it flows, so I think that's okay. So we've got a seconder, we've got a mover. Do we have discussion on these 1, 2 and 3 at all? Are you happy for me to put that motion? Are you wishing to speak, Councillor Koch?
Are we just voting on 1, 2 and 3 at the moment?
Yes. Yes.
I can't see that. Okay, that's no, I'll wait for the next lot then. Yep.
Yep. So I'll put that motion we're voting on, just so you're aware, we're voting on 1, 2 and 3. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimous. Yeah, hang on. I haven't seen your vote, Councillor Koch.
I've dropped out. I've got to start again.
You get rid of your hand.
1 minute.
You get rid of the hand, you might be able to.
Oh, 1 minute. Yep. Yeah, sorry. I just pressed the wrong button there a second ago.
Just get, there you go. Now, I think you should be right.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
all those
just
in
yeah.
favour, put your, all those in favour. Thank you, elected members. It's carried unanimously. Thank you. So I'm suggesting that for the next, for 4, 5 and 6, that council notes the feedback or we could just say the audit and risk provides the following feedback. We could leave it as it is if you want. But I think we note the recommendations from, I guess that's okay, Chris, that you've got up there. Yep. Are you happy to move that way, Councillor Davies?
Yeah, look, we had quite an interesting discussion at the audit committee. We had basically a 2-hour discussion about this proposed general rate increase. Unfortunately, the sound was lost on the YouTube recording, so you can't go back and view it, but I think, which is a real shame, because it's sort of why we've had people like Peter Brass since 2007, is so that they can provide their perspective on it. And so, yeah, this motion it's not supporting or opposing a rate increase, it's noting that this is what they said. So, you know, happy to support it and have further discussion on this at a later point.
So we have a mover. Do I have a seconder for Councillor Fraser? Do you wish to speak at all? No.
I'm quite happy that it's been done like this, because I'd like to be involved in the discussion about it as well.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this matter? Councillor Koch, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Look, yes, as Councillor Davies was saying, that we did have a really, really long discussion. You know, there's a lot of cost pressures now on council. Like as we've already mentioned, you know, the war in Ukraine is a real thing. obviously, and that's putting pressure on, you know, fuel and a whole lot of other things. And the CPI's gone up, inflation, et cetera, et cetera. These are real things that are putting pressure on our budget. What I think Peter Barras sort of was saying that, or Peter Farley-Jones was saying that some councils are even looking at 7% increase to cover it off. I think that's a bit dramatic, but to look at a 3.5 when we're considering it was 2.75 before, up to 3.5, still a bit of a jump, might be okay, but there's potentially room to look at, as it says in there, continued review of services. There may be some savings that we could find along the way to put less pressure on rate increases for our rate payers. So yeah, I'm happy to support it in this guise. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion, Councillor Shanks?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I actually had on my notes defer to budget deliberations, so I'm glad that that was picked up. I think we need to be really, really careful with how we communicate this to the greater public. Rate increase is never going to go down favourably, so we need to tread very, very carefully on how we do communicate to our ratepayers and why and what this means. We haven't had our chance as elected members who are responsible for these decisions to discuss what this looks like, what this means, what are the other avenues, have we looked at this, and so on. So yeah, I'm happy to note what's come out of the audit committee. I too am a little bit disappointed that we can't go back and listen to those important conversations. It was one of the things when we chose to keep the recordings that has really, really assisted this elected member in keeping across committees that physically he just can't be on. So yeah, even if it ends up that when we do have this come to a budget deliberation, we do get a presentation from the chair, maybe, I'm not sure of that committee. But yeah, look, I'm happy to support the noting, but yeah, there's a lot of questions and a lot to unpack there. So heads up, staff, on that one.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? Oh, hang on. Okay, all those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Now, this next motion has a 0.6, so talks about recommended 3.5, and we're asking to adopt the recommendations from the audit committee. And I think we can go to 0.5, and then for 0.6, we note the feedback from the, because that's also the feedback, and we note the feedback from the audit committee, and I would recommend that we split that. So we do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we do a separate motion as we did before, so that we note that feedback so that we can still deliberate in the future. Are you happy to do that, Councillor Davies? So that I'm suggesting 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then split, and we'll do a separate motion for 0.6, 7, and 8. Are you happy to move that way? Do we have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Fraser. Does everyone understand what I've just explained there? Yeah, so we're just pulling out the feedback and we're noting that feedback, which is 0.6, which includes recommends a 3.5% general rate increase. And I agree, we do need a little bit more information. I can't go back and listen to the audit committee, so I don't know what they said. So I'm none the wiser. So yeah, I would certainly like to hear a bit more from our independent members. Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. Any other discussion? If not, I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. So that leaves 0.6, 7, and 8 that the council notes the recommendation from the audit committee, which is 6, 7, and 8. You happy to move that way, Councillor Little? Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that, Councillor Davies? Any discussion? If not, I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. So we'll move to, now I think we've done the third quarter budget review, Paul, so that we don't need to do that. Rates oversight scheme, response to draft framework and approach consultation paper. Looking for a mover and a seconder of the recommendation. Clearly it would have been discussed at the audit committee. I don't know because I didn't hear it. Councillor Davies, you happy to move that way? Deputy Mayor, you happy to second? There's no further discussion. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Policy review over the page. Asset management policy and disposal of land and assets. And we're asking to adopt the recommended policies. Looking for a mover. You happy to move, Councillor Fraser? Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor is second. Any discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now, we do have a late item. It's up to you whether we want to include that, the CCS. Have people had an opportunity to see that or not? I'm happy. It only got circulated last night. So I'm happy not to include it if people feel uncomfortable, because yeah, it only got, it was an omission, so we can include that at another time. Okay, we'll keep moving then. I'm on page 105 of the agenda, external body reports. We've got 2 minutes to note. Thank you, Councillor Davies. You happy to move? Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Little, thank you. Any discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. So we're moving through the agenda. There's no questions on notice. Any questions without notice? Councillor Davies.
So today I was going through Facebook and saw on the local Bunyip newspaper that the Gawler Homemaker Centre apparently has a new application for a Woolworths in there. I'm just curious if we know anything about that, whether it goes through council in its process, just if we have any information on that.
Is it on the SA planning portal? Is that where it came from, Brendan? Yeah, so it's on the SA planning portal. Jack, have you got any insights that you'd like to share?
Through the chair, not at this stage. I probably understand that it will go through the State Planning Commission. But we haven't seen.
We'll take that on notice and provide a response for you, Councillor Davies. Thank you, Jack. If we could just provide that response in due course. Thank you. Any other questions without notice, Councillor Sample?
Thanks, Mayor Karen. We heard tonight certainly about the people that came tonight about the building and the change of use of the building next to the primary school. On Monday afternoon, we had our Business Development Board meeting, and Mr. Barrett gave, I think, one of the best reports I've heard for a long time. I mean, he talks a lot and he does some great talking about things, but I wish that every councillor could have been there to hear him. He's probably forgotten what he said now, but basically he explained to the Business Development Board about all the developments.
What's your question?
Well, the question is that couldn't we have that sort of report that Mr. Barrett gave to the Business Development Board meeting about all of the developments that are happening in Gawler at the moment?
Oh, yeah. Well,
Mr. Davies, Councillor Davies asked the same question, and I've heard about that too. But when do we as elected members, we don't want it in information, I'd like people like Mr. Barrett to tell us.
But we could, David, you could share that. You could share that to all elected members. That would be quite useful, I think.
Through the chair, yes, happy to share that information that was provided by our planning team in regards to what development applications have been put through to the Planning SA portal that are relevant to the Gawler area in a commercial business sense. Yeah. But happy to provide the agenda through to council members, not a problem.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's lovely. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Yes, Councillor Davies.
I'm not sure if this is something that needs a motion or anything, but just around what we were discussing before about the rate increase and such, would we be able to get, I don't know, some sort of presenter or, you know, something for a future meeting to be able to speak about this further?
Certainly talk with Mr. Horwood and the independent members to do a presentation to a future meeting. I don't think we need a motion. I think that's the role of the independent members to do that. So I can certainly talk with Mr. Horwood when that could be arranged. And we'll add that as taking that on notice, Paul. Okay. You right there? What are you doing? Doing something. Anyway, now there was some correspondence. Any other questions without notice? No, I don't see anybody else's hand up. So on this motion on notice, there was some correspondence. CEO, I don't have a copy of it here. In regard to your motion, Councillor Shanks, and part of the motion, I think, part of the issue was seeking to have a code of conduct for council employees. We can have a code of conduct for a CEO because we're responsible for the CEO, but the CEO is responsible for the employees. So I think there was some wording, and I never saw any response back. What was? Are you sorry?
Yeah, look, Mayor, I received that advice last night, and I didn't have time to.
And I haven't had a chance today
to decode it.
Yeah.
So look, in the nature of moving forward, I actually wouldn't mind deferring my motion
and having
consideration to the advice received, because I also have some other advice that are coming in as well. So
you don't have to Chris, if Councillor Shanks doesn't present this, does he have to re-present it? Or if he defers it, what's the better process?
Adjourn this. The next meeting, yeah.
So the June meeting?
But will I be able to amend it, given the advice that I'm going to be pursuing, or? Yeah, look, let's do that. Let's withdraw and I'll resubmit.
Okay.
Yep.
Seeking further advice or whatever. Okay, yeah. So we just won't present it and then you'll re-present. Okay, yep. Too easy.
Yep.
Okay, so that deals with that. We're not dealing with this tonight. Motions without notice. Goldstone. What's your motion without notice?
Just quickly, I'd just like to move a motion.
Bless you. That was 3. Yep. Sorry.
I'd like to move a motion that a report be provided to the next council meeting, providing details of the approved and budgeted works within the 21-22 budget that would not be completed this financial year.
I can't. I'm sorry, Kelvin. I didn't hear what you said.
I said that a report be provided to the next council meeting, providing details of the approved and budgeted works and projects that will not be completed this financial year. And the reason for that is I think it's important, as was raised earlier in the meeting, that we as members know exactly what of these works and projects will or will not be completed this year and which ones will be rolled over to next year. So I'm simply asking for a listing of those projects.
I might refer to Mr. Delina, or is it Mr. Horwood? Provide some advice. Can you just provide some advice in that regard?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Karen. If it's just in relation to the list of projects, Councillor Goldstone, that was essentially referenced in the third quarter budget review in the Appendix 2, I believe. It was, that provides a list of each of the projects that have been deferred to 22-23.
So we have that information. I beg your pardon?
Sorry, I saw that as an example of some of the bigger ticket items, but for example, I didn't see the Aspire playground on there. I might have missed that.
So I'll just clarify that.
Yeah.
Is that a comprehensive list, or does there need to be others added to that, Mr. Horwood?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Karen. My understanding was that was a complete list of each of the projects.
So I think we have that information. So perhaps we'll review that, and if you wish to bring it up as a motion or notice if you're still unsatisfied, you've got that option, Councillor. So we'll just clarify where it was for Councillor Goldstone. It was appendix.
Through the chair, just clarify that for you members. It's well, it is part of the agenda tonight. It's page 188 and 189 of 362 in the agenda, and part of attachment 1 to the third quarter budget review.
Thank you.
And specifically refer members to section B of that attachment, which lists each of the projects, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Goldstone. Okay, right. Moving on. Council member attendances. I attended, where did I write it? I wrote it somewhere. Here we go. So in front of me, I have an award, and this is an international award. This is an award for Walker Place. We won the state award for projects under 2 million. We did get some money from state government at the time, which was a Labor state government at the time of $1 million, which really helped with this project. Went into the state award. It then went into the national award, and we won the top award for Australia and New Zealand. The judges were really impressed with the project. Sam Delena was the lead for that project, I think. Is that correct? And many people have been involved. They were really impressed with the community consultation. They were also impressed with the attention to detail, particularly the signage around Ghana language, etc., and just some basic infrastructure like stormwater. There was a whole range of elements to this project. So I just thought I'd sing the accolades of staff. I think that's, we don't always do that, and I think it's really, really important that we say thank you, and it proved to be, from the professional point of view, a really, really fantastic project. So we went along to the awards on the 4th of May, and yeah, it was a really fabulous night. And for me, it was quite a surprise. I don't think it was a surprise for staff, but it certainly was a surprise for me. And it's really good to be part of that and to enjoy and support staff when these awards come along. On the 9th of May, I met up with the chair of the Gawler Youth Advisory Committee. That was our monthly meeting with Jade Hancock. Jade Hancock is a really impressive young woman. And at that time, I was contacted by the candidate who's now the member for Spence, Mr. Matt Burnell, who also had Senator Mariel Smith. So Jade Hancock got to meet Mariel Smith and Matt Burnell, and I think Jade is a very impressive, as I said, young woman, and both Mariel Smith and Matt Burnell were very impressed with the calibre of young people we have in Gawler. It was a really good opportunity for Jade to talk about youth issues at that federal level. So I was really proud to be able to have her join me in that discussion. And then on the weekend, I went along to the launch of the music clip, Why Gawler. I couldn't see you in the clip. Might have been the back of your head, might have been, could have been. But it was a fabulous clip. It was the result of a $1,500 youth grant from the South Australian government. But I think our council also put quite a bit of money into that youth clip. It was written by our young people, performed. They performed here on Saturday. They did an exceptional job. And they also did some improv drama, which was just fabulous because so now we have drama, we have a youth band, we have the town band, we have all these opportunities for young people to engage in arts and culture. And as I said on Saturday, what that does is it encourages creative thinking, decision-making, problem solving, thinking outside the square, all of those skills, public speaking, public performance, all of those skills help people in life, and we're doing that. And yeah, we should be congratulated. We had a youth officer from Salisbury here looking to see what we're doing, because you know we are a leader in this space, and we should be really proud of what we're doing with our youth. They're driving change and they're loving every minute of it. So I was really pleased to be here on Saturday. So that's sort of a snapshot of some of the highlights of my month. Any other elected member attendances, etc.? Deputy Mayor Hughes and then Councillor Fraser.
Yeah, just briefly, the Gawler Health Advisory Council meetings are always the Thursday after a council meeting, and just to update that the accident emergency handover from GP Inc. to be a state government scheme is going really well, and we've had a fantastic uptake apparently of local GPs signing on to that. So that looks like that transition that will happen at the start of this new financial year will be successful, and it's something that we'll continue to monitor on a monthly basis and get updates on. But yeah, it sounds like it's going really well. Also trying to get a master plan for the Gawler Health site, because there is a lot of extra state money that's been allocated under the promises with the Labor government, but there's also a new Labor government coming in as well federally, so to try and get some really good outcomes for Gawler. I was involved with the participatory budgeting, which was really good, and also attended a citizenship ceremony, which was great to go to as well. So yeah, that's me finished.
And we also had a volunteers morning tea, which was really well attended here in the Civic Centre, and people really loved, because we haven't had one for a couple of years, and it was really lovely to have people and say thank you to our volunteers. We have quite a number of volunteers doing a broad range of different initiatives, and they support our staff support them. So it was really, really a lovely morning to say thank you to our many and varied volunteers, which is, I think, you know, important that we do that all the time. Councillor Davies.
Well, aside from a few things that have been mentioned already, I have been to a couple of the History Month events that we've had so far, and it's been quite good. I went along to listen at lunch at the library, which, as I understand, is something that regularly does occur, but sort of has been especially promoted during History Month. So I think that was a worthwhile. Got to see our new Order of Australia medalist, Martin Johnson, reading some of his poetry. Got to listen to a banjo being played, and a reading from Jeanette Manhattan, who has published a few books about Gawler. So yeah, just some interesting History Month things going on.
Thank you. Councillor Fraser.
Councillor Samble and I went to the bridge opening. There are a few people there that were rather excited about that finally, because they actually can visit each other now without going right around. One lives in Queen Street and one lives in King Street, and they're best friends, and now they can actually cross the bridge. So that long time coming, but that happened eventually. I went to the film for the history group. It was called The
Grave Situation.
Grave Situation.
Yeah.
That was really good. I found that fantastic, and to find out how you can actually get in to find out where graves are. You know, that was by doing that, by going on the council website. That was pretty fantastic. And then I went to the book launch which Councillor Shanks was the MC at, and that was Tig and Tis, is that right? And the book was called Why We Needed It, and it was about the pandemic, and it was very interesting. It was a different way of looking at it. Rather than focusing on all the negatives of it, she focused on the positives of it, about reconnecting with family and eating around the table and all the things that happened because we weren't out and rushed and out and about. And that was really interesting too. So that was really good.
Thank you, elected members. Chris, so I think we can note the yes. Okay. I'm happy to accept a motion that we note the council member attendances. You happy to do that? The verbal reports, note the verbal reports from council members, moved by Councillor Davies. Do we have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Hughes, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Kosh. Okay, so that, and Councillor Hughes, you have produced circulated minutes for the Gawler and District Health Advisory Council. Do you wish to move that? Thank you. Do we have a seconder for the minutes of the Gawler Health Advisory Council? Councillor Fraser. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. So now we're moving to our confidential items. We have a proposal to go into confidence to haven't missed anything, have I? No. We have a recommendation to go into confidence to discuss the following matter, 17.1. You happy to move that way, Councillor Ballalonga? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Shanks. It's really good if we explain. Are you happy to explain, Councillor Shanks, why we're going into confidence?
Yes, I think it's appropriate to go into confidence because it talks about advice, legal advice given, and the commercial gain could be had by someone if we don't go into confidence. I don't know if I've said that properly, but you get the gist.
Thank you very much. If there's no further discussion, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously.